little insight into who Relive is and what we do. We are an arts and health charity. We've been going since 2006. We're based in Cardiff, but like I said, we're now working in in-person areas in North Wales and West Wales and South Wales. And a lot of our online groups work pan-Wales because we can reach people in all sorts of areas across the country. We currently run in-person groups for our veterans and veteran families who are interested in exploring their experiences through the arts. We also run an older people's life story group online, which again explores lived experiences through the arts. And we create sharings, performances online for audiences across the world who are interested in hearing the lived experiences of the people of Wales. And in particular, we've been doing a lot with older people. Our life story approach, so all our work is under the umbrella of arts and health, but we have a life story approach. And we provide a platform for people to explore their lived experiences through the arts, which can have and has had through our research a positive impact on people's mental health and well-being. Our life story methodology is rooted in respect, openness, kindness, which is a big thing for us, curiosity, patience, deep listening, and a rolling consent that enables participants of any project we do to feel they are in a safe and supportive space to explore their lived experiences. All our life story practitioners are arts trained and they are trauma informed. So we train our practitioners and we continue to do professional development with our arts practitioners to ensure we have the best quality, the highest quality of practice when we're working with people on sensitive life story work. So I'd like to share some information about a new arts and health project for us, which is connected to the North Wales Perinatal Mental Health Service. And we are supported with this project through an Arts Council of Wales Arts and Health grant. So the project title is Shine, Disgleirio, and it's a 12-week online creative program for perinatal mothers to support mental health and well-being and to reduce isolation and loneliness through the arts. So the idea is that we would invite women who are connected to the service in North Wales, who might be interested in exploring their experiences in a group setting with other women across North Wales. We know that bringing a group together can have huge benefits in terms of reducing isolation and loneliness. And we also know that an arts practice, so experiencing and talking about lived experiences through the arts, can really help to boost well-being. It can support regulation for the self, and it really encourages people to reflect and a lot of the time find strength and connection through a shared creative experience. The aim of this project at the end is to create some sort of life story sharing to enable perinatal teams across Wales and patients and other women to hear the stories of the group, and then to invite discussions about some of the themes that have come up, the impact of the work, and the potential then of spreading this work to other perinatal teams across Wales. So I'm just going to put in the chat here, just for anyone who's interested. This is the Relive website. If you're interested in just exploring it a little bit in your own time, It will allow you to connect to videos where you will see participants sharing what the experience of being part of a Relive project can do for mental health and well-being, and of course, community building. So for a lot of people we work with, there is a chronic isolation and loneliness. And for us, it's amazing to see what a group can do to just reduce the pressure of isolation and loneliness, and then obviously build and boost mental health and well-being. So because a lot of the time when I do these presentations, I do usually a PowerPoint, and then there's very little time for questions. And for me, what I've realized through this space is it's the questions sometimes that are the most important. So I was wondering, just with the time we've got now, which is about 15 minutes or so, I would just be interested if anyone had any questions about this project, anything they'd like to ask. It would be a really lovely thing to be able to talk about it and connect to things you actually need to know and want to know. So please fire away, anyone, if they have anything they'd like to ask or even to share. Oh, it's always awful, this moment.
No, I'll start it off, Karen. Hiya, are you okay? Yeah, I'm just interested to find out what it is you actually cover in your groups. What is it you actually talk about?
Yeah, so we are participant-led in terms of what we talk about. So our life story methodology starts off really gently by an invitation for each group member to talk about their name. For example, do they like their name? Do they know who gave them their name? Do they know the meaning of their name? And we are starting to look at, with that exercise, it seems quite maybe simple, but what comes out of that are clues to people's lives and their experiences. And from that, we ask lots of questions that sort of deepen the work. So all the work really is participant-led. What are the stories that they would like to share that are the most important stories they would like to talk about? I would imagine with a group of women connected to the perinatal service, there will be loads of common stories that connect people and differences. And I would imagine we would be talking about their experiences that are connected to the perinatal service. But what it is, that is absolutely the control of group members. Yeah, sorry to be sort of vague, but we don't have an agenda, which is an interesting thing for us when we're trying to get grants. We know the impact of the work and we know our methodology over the last 16 years works. We have a robust safeguarding policy and a code of conduct, which ensures that what we're doing is an ethical practice that supports people's mental health and well-being. And we're very aware that we don't want to trigger women and that they don't feel supported if a story comes up that they want to share, but it might be a difficult story or an unresolved story. We want to ensure that we're working with the North Wales team so there is a wraparound support for women as part of the project. So we're not leaving people at the end of a group session with maybe a story that has come up and then they've got to wait a week until we talk about it again. We will ensure we work really closely with the team in North Wales. If something has come up, we can offer that wraparound support.
Lovely, thank you. And my next question, or my last question then, is how do you measure it then, you know, with your outcomes and things?
Yeah, so it'd be really interesting to work with the team in North Wales about what measuring outcomes they would like as well, what you would like in a way from us. How we measure is through qualitative data. So we will be inviting participants to keep a reflective journal, which is sometimes can be through words, sometimes through photography, images, videos. But we'll be inviting the women to maybe express and reflect at the beginning, through the project, and at the end, because when we do that with groups, it's really interesting to see the journey that that person has been on, and the growth, that connection to creativity and how that's helping to support mental health and well-being. And obviously we would be asking for consent before we ever shared any of that with the wider world. But we would put that into a report that would allow us, hopefully, to leverage more money to support more women in the future. But I would like to work with the team in North Wales to see what measurements you would like as well. And maybe there's a way of doing qualitative and quantitative, making sure that we've got both.
Excellent. We've got Marilyn there wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. I'm very enthused after lunch. That's good. Thank you. Nice to hear you speak. I'm just sort of, I suppose, wondering, we've got up here, I'm in North Powys, so the very top of North Powys, so kind of bordering North Wales area, but just sort of wondering what would be your advice in sort of the first step in making, you know, connections for seeing if we could get this coming down, really. I mean, we've got really good connections already with sort of North and Mid Powys Mind, so doing the Mums Matters groups, and I know as well for us a lifeline has been like Cymraeg Blant Powys, which have been running the baby massage, baby yoga. So I don't know if there's something there that perhaps, you know, working with what we've, because again, like we've been talking about throughout the day, but you know, being creative and kind of knowing what we've got in our areas that we can tap into. So yeah, just wondering what would be your advice on a first step, really, for Powys or for any other area.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's a great question, because I think for us, this is a new programme of work, and we would be looking at this programme to see whether it does have the benefits. We think it will, but we have to test that. We have to look at this project as the first step. We would then collate our data, qualitative and quantitative, to ensure that, let's see whether this is a process and a project that can support women's mental health and well-being. If it does, and if there is an interest, we would then look to potentially partnering NHS health funds with Arts in Wales, Arts in Health Fund, to see about being able to widen it to involve other regions in Wales. So for you, I suppose, I would imagine the culmination of this first project, we hope, will involve a sharing by the women themselves to perinatal teams across Wales and women across Wales who are connected to your service. And maybe then, if there's an interest, because it's all about need, if there's an interest in this work, we would then be applying for more funding to scale up.
Great, thank you. Let's keep connected.
Brilliant. Let's keep. I'm going to put my email in the chat, right? So if anyone does have any questions or anything, you know where I am, and you can get in touch with me.
Lovely, diolch, Karen.
They said, diolch.
Do you know what I'm thinking? I have these crazy ideas. You're talking about the work you do with veterans and older people, and I've had a couple of conversations with colleagues where I'm sort of saying, wouldn't it be great if we could get to the point where we had the resource and time to be able to work with grandparents? There is so much unresolved stuff, for want of a better word, there, and that was apparent when Martha and I went along to the launch of the mental health strategy the other week in Cardiff, and we had a lady talking to us, didn't we, Martha? A grandparent was talking about her experiences and how really that's never been addressed. And again, from my own personal experience about the work with veterans and the impact that that potentially has on young families or others. I just wonder whether just keep those thoughts in mind that maybe we could get to that point.
Wow.
That we offer something, because you talk about life story approach, don't you?
Yes.
In the work you do.
And we know the ripple effect of
Absolutely.
this work does connect out to families
Yeah.
and the wider community. For example, we worked with a gentleman who is 84 years old this year, and he was living on his own. He shared with us that sometimes he was Michael and sometimes he would come to the group, which is online, as Michelle. And we started to explore his transgender identity and the impact of the work. It had huge benefits, not only for him and her, but their family and the next door neighbour to Michael and Michelle shared with us that over the last 14 years, Michael and Michelle has rarely talked to them, smiled, always complaining. And this year, something has shifted. And now Michael and Michelle are connecting to the neighbour, connecting to chatting, smiling, a very different experience for that person and the neighbour. So what we know is that's really important, the ripple effect. But we're also really aware of generational trauma. Like some of the stories that we hold, all of us, are actually not our stories. They're our mother's story, our father's story, our great-great-grandmother's story. And what this process allows people to do is to work out, is this my story? Or is this my mother's story or my mother's mother's story? So that is part of the life story methodology, is an exploration of generational trauma, generational stories, even though we wouldn't call it that. That is part of the work.
There's lots to think about there, isn't there? Particularly, I suppose, when we're talking about parent-infant relationship as well. And we do talk there about potentially about the intergenerational trauma stuff that's, you know, maybe impacting upon that relationship. So have you actually started, Karen? Have you actually started this work yet with them?
No, we will start in the new year. So the process will start from January, and we would be looking then, depending on the group and ensuring that it is the right pace for participants, and then the actual sharing, which is informal. So some of our projects are very sort of quite big, and people are in a theatre, or we do online performances to international audiences. This Shine Disclaimer will have an informal sharing, so it'll be sensitive, it'll be smaller, and that will happen at some point next year. So it really depends with the pace of the group and us being sensitive to group members when that will happen. But the actual sort of project start in terms of connecting out, starting to inquire who's interested. There's a lot of work that goes on with myself and my co-facilitator, speaking to people on the phone, just talking about the project. Is this something somebody might be interested in? That will start from January, with the activity starting around February.
Excellent. And I don't know, did you say who would who you'd be approaching? Are we talking about women, pregnant women? Are we talking about those with new babies? What?
Well, when I spoke to we've had with Kelly Arnold, this was last year when we started to talk about it. One of the things she was sharing was that there are many women they have supported who are almost at the end of the connection with the perinatal team. And there was like a concern for, well, what next? What happens to women once they're sort of leaving that supportive service, but they're still connected? And so for us, one of the great things about the Relive Life Story group work is it really supports peer-to-peer connections, community building. And so we thought, oh, it might be interesting for women who are sort of near the end of that support to sort of kind of start to connect out to other people in North Wales, other women. Who knows, maybe it can lead to maybe some in-person sort of coffees and chats, or online or on the phone, but it would be people, women who are almost towards the end of that support. That's where the thinking is at the moment. I hope that does that.
No, that's great. So so obviously Kelly's moved on, but we're talking about the specialist perinatal mental health team there, aren't we? The work that you're going to be doing. Yeah. No, that's great.
And with Debbie, I think Debbie's part. So yeah, we'll be working closely with Debbie.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Arthur, are you got your eye on the chat?
Yeah, keeping an eye on the chat, so not much in the chat, but it's just really interesting. It'd be lovely, I think, Karen, to find out how it goes for you, you know, for when you've started and what happens after that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the experiences that I feel about arts in health work is it's starting now. We realise that, as you've said right at the beginning when I joined, the services are pretty stretched at the moment. And I think what arts in health can do for populations across Wales is it can really help to support those services. It can take the pressure off services, because our findings to date, and there's a lot of research now from the World Health Organization, that arts in health can work alongside clinical practice. And we know that arts in health can feel like a medicine for people. So we believe that relationships are like medicine. And if we can provide a space for people to share experiences, connect with each other, have a sense of belonging and a purpose, that can be a powerful medicine for people in Wales, and obviously helps you to reduce that pressure you must feel every day by not being able to support people maybe as long or as much as you would like. The arts are here and we want to help out, and we know that what we do has a space. What we are encouraging on a more political level and a lobbying level is to create opportunities to share this work more, to lobby for more Welsh Government funding, which then we know the cost effectiveness of this work, and the social return on investment is incredible. But we know that we need to do more work in the lobbying field to get Welsh Government to give us more money to ensure we can help services like yourselves, people like yourselves, and working alongside you is something we would love to do more of. So for us, this is obviously supporting women, but it is also helping our organisation as well to work with you. So I'll be looking at that too. You know, how has it been, the referral pathway? How has the partnership worked? What could we do better next time? We'll be looking at all that to ensure that if we do expand and scale, that we've got the learning from this project, and obviously not just for this project, but to the wider sector of arts in health and health. So yeah, there's lots in that, but we want to support you and we're here to support you.
Lovely, thank you, Karen. I can see Millie's put a question in the chat box for you, but we've got time for Tracy to ask a question, then we'll move on to Anna, if that's okay.
Great, Karen, it's lovely to hear you. I spoke with Kelly Arnolds a few months ago. She was like, oh, fingers crossed we got the funding application in. And really, I just want to say from a kind of the arts perspective, and although we are still looking for ways to fund these work, you know, it's enormous strides in the last 3 years around arts and health, where we have £800,000 a year now going specifically into arts and health projects from the Arts Council of Wales, a huge 2-year project, Health, Arts, Research, People, the HARP project, which gave us fantastic evidence of what we need to do in the arts, where we go from a kind of seed project, which is Breath Cafe, which I did, which is sort of trying it out, getting the initial feedback, and then saying, well, how do we now grow this? How do we scale this? How do we roll it out further? In the arts, we're very creative and we like doing something and then we like moving on. And in a way, when we start working with health partners, what we're learning to do is, well, if it's working, how can we, tweak, adjust, enhance, and now bring it across to the next health board, the next region. So I feel like we're just at the beginning of this journey together and we're learning together. So it'll be great, Karen, to see how that develops in North Wales.
Oh, thanks, Tracy. That was, excellent, just to be reminded of all the good stuff that is happening across Wales in arts and health. It's an exciting time for us all. Yeah. My
brain's whirring. People are going to dread me saying that. Oh my God, all these thoughts. Okay, if that's all the questions for Karen, what we'll do then is move on to Anna, if that's okay, Anna. Anna's Director of London Arts and Health and is going to talk to us about Tea and Toast, poetry for new mums. And I'll leave Anna to share the rest of your experience and what you bring, if that's okay.
Hi everyone, I hope you can hear me okay. Give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for having me here today. I feel like a bit of an outsider because I'm a Londoner and I'm also an artist, like two of possibly the worst things ever, right? So I really apologise for that in advance. But what I hope to give you all today is just a kind of bit of perspective on my own lived experience of birth trauma and kind of artistically processing that, and also really just an expression of kind of collaboration from England. So at London Arts and Health, I'm going to do the old share screen in a minute, but at London Arts and Health, I'm the regional lead for the Culture, Health and Wellbeing Alliance, which you may have heard of. And there's lots of stuff happening in terms of things like this. We're currently doing a review of the Creative Health Report. So there's lots and lots of evidence. I know everyone's kind of been questioning the evidence base and stuff today, but there's tons of evidence as to why this all works. And just anyone who wants to have a chat with me or collaborate, I just love collaborating and conversations and working together. So I'm going to just share my screen. I really hope this works. Just bear with me. Okay, here we go. I'm hoping that's going to work. Oh, it's having a think. Goodness, this is very dramatic. I apologise. I can hear my computer is working very hard. Here we go. Oh, wow. Okay, hang on. Let me just go into present mode. Great. Maybe just give me some thumbs up if you can see that, if that's okay. Great, and you can still hear me. Okay, excellent. Yeah, so my name's Anna Wolf. I'm a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. I'm the director of London Arts and Health, and I'm also doing my PhD, which is like self-inflicted torture, basically. Like, I don't know why I'm doing a PhD as well as running a charity and having children. It's really hard work, but I really love my PhD. So I thought I'd just give you a quick bit of context about my work. So as the director of London Arts and Health, we are very, very lucky to be just refunded on the 4th of November in the Arts Council's portfolio. So as a sector support organisation, really my job is to support the sector in London. So that looks like, networking, newsletters, sharing job opportunities, but also a lot of kind of strategic work behind the scenes. So what Karen was saying, you know, ensuring that, you know, those collaborations, those conversations are happening between health colleagues and between the kind of creative health or the arts and health sector, so that we can get funding for projects. You know, I do a lot of work on things like social prescribing as well. So for London, I wrote a thing called the Arts and Culture Social Prescribing Mythbuster, which really kind of look to debunk myths around cultural social prescribing and look at things like referral pathways, how to collaborate with link workers, what's the evidence base, that kind of thing. We also run at London Arts and Health a yearly national festival called Creativity and Wellbeing Week, which anyone can be involved in, and really encouraging kind of grassroots sector, anyone sort of delivering within this space, to share workshops, share ideas. And that has events really all over the country, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, all over the world. We've had international events kind of submitted, and next year it will be happening in May again. It's always a really exciting way to kind of uplift the sector and really profile what creative health is all about. And then my PhD, which is not really anything about kind of maternal stuff, but very connected. So my PhD at Central School of Speech and Drama is very embedded in storytelling and young people and kind of adolescent mental health and lived experience of chronic illness. So I actually work with young people who I co-collaborate with to storytell about their lived experiences of arthritis, something I'm very personally very passionate about. So in this image, you can see one of my young people dressed as a purple monster. So that's how she embodied her arthritis. And we ran a week's residency in February this year for my PhD at the Unicorn Theatre in London. So it's like one of the kind of leading children's theatres. So we took conversations and, you know, thinking about health out of a clinical space, and we went to a theatre, and it was just really brilliant and really engaging and just so like fascinating. That sounds like a bit of a horrible word, like they were fascinating, but it was just fascinating for the young people as well to be with other young people like them. They never normally meet other young people with arthritis. It's quite an isolating condition. So that was really kind of exciting. But as well as those things, I'm also a mother. So here they are, the two, you know, troublemakers in my life. I've got a nearly 8-year-old and a 3-year-old as well. So Alba is the big one and Luna is the little one. And I'm really, I think, you know, giving birth, trigger warning, I'm going to talk very quickly through some of my kind of birth stories and sort of what happened to me. Oh, people are saying that the slides aren't changing. Oh dear. Is that better? Oh, no, the slides haven't changed at all. Oh, I have to do it here. Okay, is that better? Now you can see the slides changing. People are kind of nodding. Yeah, so that was the London Arts and Health slide. So all the kinds of things we do at London Arts and Health. Here's the slide about my PhD and the young person dressed up as the purple monster, which was for her. That's what her arthritis meant. And here they are, my two troublemakers. So yes, I'm also a mother. So I've lived experience of birthing people out of me, which is just great. Note the irony in my voice. So I wanted to talk about this actually because it had a massive effect on me, and I think that's what I've really, you know, heard today is that, you know, sometimes birthing and having children is like just such a kind of strange event that happens in your life. Both my pregnancies, I had hyperemesis gravidarum very severely. So I remember with Alba, oh, you can control the slides. Oh, we're all learning something today about Teams. This is great. With Alba particularly, I was kind of vomiting about 15 times a day, and I, you know, didn't have kind of very great care. So I just kind of muddled through that by myself, existing on Diet Cokes and cheese sandwiches, and just kind of thought this is what pregnancy was. It wasn't great. And had a very protracted traumatic birth, which lasted for about a week. I was kind of in pre-labor. Oh, it's all going wrong again. Hang on, here we go. Can I change the slide? Here we go. And I ended up on a ward for a week because I sort of hemorrhaged during my birth. The baby was very unwell, and ended up having 3 blood transfusions because I lost so much blood. I kind of went blind. I found it all very discombobulating. And as someone said earlier, just not the birth plan. That's not what I'd written down. That's not what was supposed to happen. So I just found this whole thing very strange and very difficult to process, which kind of led me to producing this first kind of poetry booklet, which I'm going to share in a minute. And my second birth this is Luna, so she's just fresh on the table. Here you go. My second birth, again, quite traumatic, but I felt much more empowered. I was put under a psychologist, which was life-changing because I became extremely anxious in pregnancy. I basically convinced myself that I was going to die in labour because my labour before was so awful. And so I worked with this brilliant psychologist. We decided that I was going to have a section. It felt very empowering. Now, the section went quite wrong. It didn't all sort of go to plan, but I still felt quite healed from that experience. So this is Luna just being born, and I remember looking, so you know, sometimes people who are with you during your birthing taking photos and like looking back on these images and feeling so disassociated again, like I just don't recognize the woman in that picture. That does not look like me. You know, I was not very well. And actually the thing with Luna that was also quite traumatic is that she kept going blue, so she had to be resuscitated twice, and she spent a week on special baby care, which was again another kind of wild experience. But I feel like I've had these very particular experiences of sort of birth and bringing humans into the world, and that sort of lived experience, and that's why it's so important to me to get some of that out and to sort of enable other people to do that. I'm really passionate about that as well. That's Luna again. So poetry and motherhood. So my first book that I produced called Tea and Toast, Poems for New Mums. This was in conjunction with UCLH, with the maternity wing at UCLH Hospital, which is kind of around the Euston area of London. And again, before I share a bit more from the book, just flicking onto this slide, again, everyone's kind of talking a bit about evidence and stuff today. I think the Creative Health report from the APPG All-Party Parliamentary Group on Arts, Health and Wellbeing is so like useful if this has piqued your interest, if you're looking for more kind of information and evidence and so on. And David Shrigley, the illustration here, it says that arts can reconstruct you, and I certainly felt like that. You know, having you know, small children in your life, you definitely feel quite disconnected from your previous self. You know, even stuff like being addressed as mum, and actually that's not my name. You know, I feel really attached to my identity as a director running a charity and all the other things I do, and I found it really strange, like becoming a mother. I found that really hard. But there's actually currently a review happening as well of the evidence, so there'll be more evidence, even more evidence published next year, which is really, really exciting, and I know that kind of maternal health will be part of that offer as well. So Tea and Toast, Poems for New Mums. So it's funded by UCLH Arts, and it was distributed on ward. So something I found, both times giving birth, I stayed on ward for a very long time. My first birth, I think it was like 2 weeks, and my second birth was a week. And obviously everything is very focused on the baby, rightly so, but again, that thing of feeling quite erased as a person, you're just kind of there to sort of care for the baby, and I felt like I sort of disappeared. So I produced this booklet with other mothers, so it has 11 poets in it who are all kind of mothers in their own right, having children in lots of different ways, whether that's adoption, birth, etc., etc. And the poems kind of cover that first year of having a baby. So all the sort of glorious things, from the night feeds to giving birth to kind of coping with this new person that you're caring for. And the project was launched at Creativity and Wellbeing Week in 2018. With a kind of a range of readings from the poetry book, and we had some amazing poets, Claire Pollard, Holly McNish, who you might have heard of, Wendy French, Fossil Mashinkiller, Carrie-Ad Lloyd, who also she's an actress, she also does the Grief Cast, which is a podcast about grief, which is really moving, Katie Kirby, Helen Thorne, who's one half of the Scummy Mummies, so she's a comedian, so brought a completely different perspective. And the book was designed by an artist, so for me, like, that kind of artistry of the object was really important, and it's kind of based on a scan picture, so I hope you can kind of see that. That's the kind of baby in the scan picture. And I thought I'd read a couple of poems. I'm going to read some poems this afternoon. So the first poem I'm going to read is by Claire Pollard, and this is called The Very Hungry Animal, and it was kindly reproduced from her poetry book Incarnation, published by Blood Axe. So this is Claire's poem. The caterpillar eats through melon. A bear eats honey from a pot. The tiger eats all of the biscuits. My child's delicate, efficient mouth expertly milks the long teat. His jaw beat the trigger for a spray, a pale flicker. A droplet sugars my finger. In pregnancy, I craved cake, ginger and red Chinese sauce. Now he stands on my knee and looms over, a monster attacking New York City. His moist maw wide as its edges, chomps chin, chews cheek, sucks my eyeball. Does this cloy? He doesn't love me, if love means what I mean it to mean. He doesn't know me, or only the taste of my knuckle or nose. When I cry, he pokes his tongue to catch what pulls. He fattens. In Africa or Syria, quick, careful mouths try to tease a bright bead. I think of them, or rather of him bone thin, and milk soaks the pads. I hug his sweet weight as I read how the blonde eats up the porridge, how the tiger eats all of the biscuits and empties the cupboards and empties the taps. So that's Claire's lovely poem. And I'm going to read my own poem as well. It's very, very short. And this was called 3:45 a.m. If you are a mother, you can probably relate to waking or being woken up at that time a lot. So this is 3:45 a.m. Sometimes when I wake up, I can't quite remember why. Then I realise I'm listening for signs of life, crackling, breathing, or a stifled cry. Signs that shudder through your dreaming frame. Checking on you would risk waking you up. You must know that. Oh, holy sleeper, can you hear my heartbeat, the silencing boom of it? Because that would wake you too. The loudness of love, the very deafening sound of it, timing our night. So 1,000 books were printed and they were distributed from the midwives to new mums. So the kind of point was that this was an interaction. When you have a hospital birth, you know, most hospital births go really well and it's all really great and fine. But, you know, sometimes you're in hospital having a particular kind of birth in a hospital and it's very baby focused, as expected. Everybody wants the baby to be okay. But this was something for midwives to give mums and just say, this is for you. We designed it very purposefully that it fits into a pocket of a change bag. It fits into a small space. And all the poets also are kind of listed with like social media presence. So they're kind of mums that you can find online and follow and kind of have a rapport with to sort of know that you're kind of not alone in some of these experiences, because sometimes having a baby can be really isolating and really overwhelming. The other project I wanted to share was Maternal Journal. So some people might already know this. It's a fantastic book if you don't. Laura Godfrey Isaacs and Samantha McGowan. Laura is a midwife. They're kind of creative producers as well. So I wrote a creative guide for journaling for the Maternal Journal book and kind of helped with the launch of the book. And I think what's so brilliant about Maternal Journal is that it's really easy for anybody to kind of try any of the journaling guides. Like, you don't have to be an artist, you don't have to be a specialist creative facilitator. You can very, very easily kind of follow the guides in the book or online. There's a whole kind of website full of materials. And there's also lots of Maternal Journal kind of in-person groups now that have really popped up where the kind of emphasis is on journaling for the mums and kind of that sense of community and kind of being together. And then the final kind of publication I thought I would just share really briefly is the Mum Poem Press. So again, Mum Poem Press is a really, really brilliant collection of anyone who identifies as mother. That's anyone who is birthing, anyone kind of caring in that kind of role. And they produce anthologies of poetry, again, that kind of cover all different kinds of, you know, experiences of motherhood. So I had a poem in the book, which was fantastic, and we're having a reading. So the thing that Mum Poem Press does really well is kind of collect mother poets together. It's almost like an open mic night, and we're doing that at South Bank Centre next week, which will be really exciting, to actually stand up and read in a community of people that understand some of the experiences that you've had is really powerful. So I'm going to finish in a second, and I thought I'd read a couple more poems just to kind of close out. Thank you for listening to me today, and just I hope this has been kind of useful, interesting, and please do connect with me. I'll put some links in the chat. So I'm going to read a poem on my phone, which is a few years old now, and it's about incontinence. Okay, definitely something that lots of mums and lots of women and lots of people experience. So it's called Tenor Lady. I hope you enjoy it. Tenor Lady, £10 a month it costs to buy and keep me so streak-free and dry. I laugh it off and don't act glum, even when I start to hum. Urethra drip, the water passing, with each day the deluge bulging. 37, no pelvic floor, no belief and no rapport. My doctor says it's STI or some infection that prevents the dry. So instead I simply drip and peel away each sticky strip and stick inside my marks and sparks, and really try not to laugh too hard or jump or kick or bend too far. With no pelvic floor, I won't go far. I won't go far away from you, my beloved, darling, ensuite Lou. There you go, I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll just share this final tiny poem here, which sometimes I share on my Instagram, or, you know, kind of within some of the mother kind of poetry groups that I'm in. So this I wrote during lockdown. So when coronavirus first hit, Luna was about 4 or 5 months old. So I had a really like different kind of experience being a mother during the pandemic with her, and, you know, didn't do any baby groups, didn't go to soft play, didn't go to any of these places that were suddenly very risky, particularly if you had a young child that hadn't had all its vaccinations and so on and so forth. So she just started to crawl, and I kind of penned this poem. So it goes like this. The tender spring yields me a crawler, swivel-hipped determined, a vine snaking her way across the floor. Awkward Spider-Man. Tiny objects are her downfall. Marbles, buttons, beads and stones will not stop her. If summer a walker, what then? Towards whose empty arms will she place one foot in front of the other? So I'm Anna Wolf. Thank you so much for having me today, and I hope that was useful and interesting.
Anna, thank you so much. Yeah, it's poignant, isn't it? It's, you know, all that you're saying. From the fact that we're all friends here, and you are more than welcome to be part of the Wales Perinatal Mental Health Network. Yeah, absolutely more than welcome. Any questions, any thoughts, for any feedback for Anna at all here?
Can I just ask Sharon?
Yeah, you can.
Just wondering, can we purchase that Tea and Toast book, Anna, or not?
No, because that's not kind of how it was designed.
No.
I think, I mean, I've still got a few left. I'm very happy to kind of post some out. I think what was tricky about the project was it was really hard to evaluate, right? So it was a bit of a punt from UCLH in terms of, normally with this kind of activity, like a lot of what's been described today, you might be running or hosting like repeat sessions, which is absolutely like fabulous creative health practice, and, you know, creating kind of communities, groups, legacy places for people to return to. But for me, like, this intervention was really specifically that point where you're like walking out of the hospital and you're just thinking, I kind of want to swear, but like, what the F just happened to me? I've got this like thing in a car carrier. I don't know how to put it in the car. And this was like this, it kind of came out of, it was very much based in kind of design-led process, but midwives wanting to give something to mums really, really tangibly that says like, you're not alone, you're okay, I'm thinking of you, here's other women, other humans who you can connect with. And they're not going to look at it in the car on the way home, but they're going to put it in the bag, and they are going to get it out in 3 weeks or 3 months time and just when you're having that day. And I think as someone who, you know, I was never formally diagnosed as PND or anything, but I had terrible anxiety, especially my second pregnancy, you know, just knowing that there are other places and people that you can connect with. And as a writer and a poet, that was the best way I could dream up a project. But I think, you know, I would love, you know, the red book that we where's the bit for mums in the red book, because I just didn't see myself in any of that. But really, I was the person that was responsible for keeping this baby alive. I couldn't believe it, me. It's incredibly hard to evaluate. So yeah, because once that woman walks out the door, often they don't have contact with that with the hospital anymore. They're going to their GP or whatever, so the connection's slightly lost. So it was really hard to evaluate the kind of outcomes of giving the book.
No, thank you, Anna. That's exactly what I was feeling. You know, sometimes a health visitor, you feel like you just want to give something just for the interim period. Something like that would be fantastic. So, but yeah, the wonderful poems. I have read quite a few, so thank you.
So Jenna, keep that thought in mind. There's
Will do.
potential there. Yeah, there's potential there of something maybe that we could, you know, replicate similar. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tracy.
Yeah, great. And Jenna, we've got some fantastic literary organisations like Literature Wales, I'm sure, who would be delighted to collaborate on a project like that in Wales, and maybe get it bilingual as well, so we could have it in Welsh. My question, Anna, is great to hear everything, and I hope we'll have further conversations. But my question is specifically around what were the relationships with the health staff? So you're coming from an arts perspective, UCL, you kind of have the university supporting. Then how did you develop the relationships with the midwifery team? How did that all come about to enable a project like that to happen?
Yeah, so I think UCH is well, no, not unique, because I think lots of hospitals in London have like a kind of arts worker embedded in them, but UCLH really specifically, so Guy Noble has headed up that team for like years and years. And again, as these things often happen, it was sort of through other sort of meetings and networkings. I met Wendy French, who's one of the poets. She also teaches medical humanities at King's to kind of trainee like doctors, clinical staff. So she's also a kind of mother and a grandmother now, and a poet. And she was working with Guy. So Guy commissions within the hospital everything from the art on the walls to social prescribing within the hospital to very specifically kind of you know, arts and health projects happening, whether that's supporting staff, supporting particular cohorts of patients. And I think they felt that within the within the kind of maternity like department, I guess that something like that hadn't really happened before. So they were very keen to just trial, and they liked the sense that it was very tangible, that you could control like where the books were. It wasn't like you were putting like a person into that ward, which like, you know, would you want a roaming poet when you just had a baby? Like, probably not. But like something for the midwifery team, and then did a kind of round table, and that was very enthusiastically met, that like, yeah, to be able to give something to women and just have that 30 seconds of like, you're going to be okay, you know, that would really work for them. So that's kind of where that came from. But Guy Noble, like very specifically, there is a kind of arts and health department, I guess, to UCLH where they're commissioning that work.
Yeah, great. And for those of you who don't know, in Wales, we do now have an arts and health coordinator in every health board. Some of them are here because I've seen Esilt and Sarah Goody. So there, if you're unaware of them in your own health boards, there will be someone, and in some cases whole teams, maybe then to generate those sort of effects. Great, thanks, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Martha, is there a way of sharing the leaflet that you sent to me in the chat? Or
yeah, I was going to add it with Helen. So we've got all the leads, Tracy, for Wales. We've got that document, so we're going to share so that people can connect with their health creative leads really in every health board, because I think, yeah, that's your kind of door in really, isn't it, Anna, trying to make those links with who's in the individual health boards, because it's opening that conversation. And I think even if they're not specific perinatal mental health groups, I know within CTM, SL's had some fantastic groups running, and we've been able to refer families into those groups. They're not specifically for perinatal mental health, but they're creative groups that will help people that might be struggling with their mental health at that time, really. So it's linking in with what's there. Yeah, and driving forward really with all of that stuff.
Okay, any more thoughts, any more questions for Anna at all? Okay, thank you very much, Anna. And shall we move on now to Sarah? And is Gwyn with us, Sarah?
He'll be with us shortly, hopefully.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Sarah Douglas. I'm a clinical psychologist for an Iron Bevan specialist perinatal team. Gwyn Lewis is our writer and my co-collaborator on this project, but he's also my husband. So he's he's in some other mandatory training that he's having to do for his PhD in creative writing. So as soon as that finishes, he'll hop on board and join me. But I've got his notes if he gets held up. So apologies for that. So yes, so we're planning to talk to you about the project we've been running in an Iron Bevan in our specialist perinatal team, which we've called Writing Tree. And the reason we called it that is so this project is based around improving nature connection, and the place that we've hosted our projects actually in an ancient beech forest, and the Old English word for beech is bok, and that's where we get the word book from. So I'll just give you a bit of context around how this project came to be, and then I've got a whole heap of video material actually from the forest, so I thought that one might give you a real experience of what it's been like for this project. So for a very long time I've had a real passion for nature, and I've got a 12-year-old daughter who is even more passionate than me. So I guess I've been thinking in work about how I can kind of combine my two interests, that interest in kind of preserving our nature, thinking about the climate emergency, with what we do in work. And I guess something I think a number of us in the specialist perinatal teams have identified is also a big gap for dads. So I guess we were thinking about what can we do for dads. I was getting more interested in outdoor therapies. I had a lovely placement student who did a wonderful literature review and went out talking to dads as well, finding about what would dads like, how could we combine something around the outdoors with dads. And then a few months, I think after that, we kind of reached a bit of a stalemate. Well, we kind of want to do something, we've got no funding. And then myself and Gwyn saw a grant that was through Literature Wales and Natural Resources Wales. So we decided to have a punt. We put a bid in to do a project for dads using an approach called forest bathing, combining that with creative writing. I'll say, well, my video will say a bit more about forest bathing in a minute. And we were sort of blown away that we got the funding, because I think it was a fairly competitive field. So we went off in search of the forest where we were going to host it, somewhere in an Iron Bevan patch, and we discovered Wentwood Forest. And we were all set up to start this group for dads. There was a lot of enthusiasm in the team, and one dad signed up. So we were panicking. We'd already had half the money for this project. It was only a small project. And so we redesigned the project. Literature Wales are really happy with our new idea. So we decided that the way to get dads involved was through the mums. So we re-advertised, and this time we recruited couples and their baby. So it was a new project. Initially, when we were going to do it just for dads, I was going to have one of my lovely colleagues, one of our assistant psychologists, run it with Gwyn, but because we made it bigger in terms of involving the whole family, so I kind of stepped in and led the forest bathing element of it, and then Gwyn led the creative element. But we also had the assistance of one of our assistant psychologists as well, just to be an extra pair of hands should we need it. So we had, I think we had 7 couples sign up. One couple couldn't attend due to COVID. Unfortunately, another couple were going through a separation, so they pulled out. So we had 5 couples in the end and their baby. But we did have to exclude any older children. So if anyone with an older child wanted to come, we said, great, but unfortunately you're going to have to find childcare, because we thought that was a step too far, how we run these forest sessions and take into account kind of walkers and movers as well. So in the end, we had 5 couples. We did 2 Saturday sessions at the end of both in July, and then we had a follow-up session in October. So what I'm going to do is share with you me introducing forest bathing as I do it with our families. Hopefully it's going to work. Hopefully the sound will work. I think everyone's on mute anyway. And then what I'd like to do is a bit of kind of an experiential exercise with you guys, so you can maybe have a sense of what it might be like to do forest bathing, and then we'll share some other bits from our follow-up event in October. And then hopefully by the time Gwyn joins us, he can talk more about the creative elements and the outcome measures. So hopefully that's okay. So I'll give it a go. Hopefully it'll work. This is always the anxiety. Any of you who do video interaction guidance know exactly what this is like. All my skills comes from that approach in IT, which is still quite limited. Okay. So we can see the event. There we go. Oh, I just realised did I share the sound? Let me know if you can hear it.
Hi everybody, and welcome to Wentwood Forest. So this is one of the oldest forests in the whole of Wales, and actually the largest ancient beechwood forest in the whole of Wales. And so this is where we do our forest bathing. So what is forest bathing? So forest bathing is a mindful and immersive time spent in nature. So the reason why it's called bathing is because I guess it's just like taking a bath, immersing yourself in water, but instead, whilst we're here, we're immersing ourselves in the forest. So what we found out from a lot of the research that's mainly come from Japan is that spending time in the forest has huge benefits for our physical well-being. It reduces blood pressure, it improves our immunity through boosting our natural killer cells, and it's also incredibly helpful for our well-being. So it improves concentration, memory, it's good for feelings of depression, anxiety, and it's also really helpful for our creativity as well. So the reason that time spent in the forest is so good for us is because it brings us back to where we have evolved. So we've evolved in nature, so we've evolved around greenery, and we can see more colours of green than we can any other colours. So more than 300 different shades of green our eyes are able to see. And as we've moved away from nature and more into cities, more into urban life, we've become more disconnected from nature and disconnected to the environment that feels much more at home to us, where we feel calmer. So when we spend time in nature, when we deliberately spend time noticing the nature around us, it's really good for our well-being. So during this time in the forest, we're going to take a very slow, deliberate walk through the forest. We're not going to hurry, we're going to take our time, and then we'll pause at certain points to do mindfulness-based activities, time to notice through our senses what it's like being here in the forest. And then hopefully at the end of it, you'll feel calmer, hopefully you'll get a better night's sleep tonight, and just feel more connected to nature.
Right, so what I'd like us all to do now, I'm going to play some footage of just taking that very slow walk through the forest. So what I'd just like you to do is, as you're doing that, just note, that can be in your mind, or you can even write down any words that pop into your mind. So anything through, obviously you're not actually there, so we're more limited with our senses, but anything you can hear, anything you can see. If we were there for real, we'd be thinking about smell. We might even do, potentially you could even do taste, drinking pine tea and that sort of thing. So we just look out for what you can see and what you can hear, and then either just kind of note it. You might want to put it in the chat box if you like, at the end of it. or just note down on a piece of paper. Okay, so hopefully sometimes when you come out of this, when you start talking again, the sound cuts out, but let me know if you can't hear anything at all, because it would be a shame not to hear anything. Okay, so I don't know if you just want to put some quick words in terms of what you've heard or seen or even felt just watching that short video now, and put it in the chat box. And yeah, Martha, I don't know if you'd mind reading out anything, because I can't see any of you at the moment while I've got this. I'll just give you a moment, so we won't do it for very long.
We've got So Peaceful, Can Hear the Crunching of Leaves, Birds and Chirping. We've got Bird, Space, Lightness, Pattern on the Leaves, Peaceful and Curiosity.
Lovely.
Connected, Blissful, Calm, Earthing, Autumnal Colours, Soft. Fresh, Peace, Crunchy Autumn Leaves, Stillness. We've got Crunching Leaves again, and Space and Birds. Peaceful, Birds, Leaves underfoot, Peaceful, the twitter of the birds. Leaves again, the birds, the wind, and someone saying they feel calm and content. Stillness and distance, wind and breathing, crunchy leaves, damp and fresh birds, and a break from the busyness of the day. Spaciousness, scale, silence, light, deep breath. And then we've got leaves, calmness and peace and birds, calming, peaceful. Colour and textures, feeling at home. Anne-Marie's going to change the tone now. She said she felt nervous, and so she wrote murderer. So apart from Anne-Marie, we've got more people feeling relaxed, calm and sleepy. You've been watching too many horror films, that's the reason, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, well, that's really thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
So any of you that have ever run mindfulness exercises, we do it a bit differently with the forest bathing. We're just really noting what comes up rather than doing any kind of exploration. But yeah, absolutely, there's always going to be some people that don't feel at home in nature, and a lot of that is because it just, for many, it does feel very unfamiliar. And almost I would say it takes more work if it feels like a very unfamiliar environment. It's kind of working up to having being more comfortable in that environment, because our lives have become very distant from these kind of wild places. So not everybody has that experience. There's actually a lovely book called The Nature Fix, which is written by a journalist. I forget her name, but I think it's on my shelf there. Florence Williams, by Florence Williams, and she talks about, she kind of approaches a lot of these kind of nature approaches with a real open journalistic take on it. And yes, for some people you don't get that feeling of calm, but yes, interesting that even from a video, the overwhelming kind of themes around calm. So I'm just gonna carry on with this video and just show you, just kind of give you an example of one of the exercises we actually did with our families in the forest. So we did a whole range of exercises, from kind of noting through our senses like this, to barefoot walking, which is a really unique experience, and a majority of people really love that one. Looking out over a kind of a vista. Also having some time separate as well. So we on our first session we did time alone just for the dads, and so mums and babies went off and did a separate exercise. And on our second session we did time alone for the mums, and I sort of hosted the mums just time alone, and that was rather wonderful actually, because I think the mums spent sort of 10 minutes just in the forest without their babies and without their partner. And some of them even got close to falling asleep. They were so relaxed, and it was lovely actually, in the way they connected. The mums connected after that exercise, and they started sort of sharing their experiences with each other as we kind of walked back to meet up with the dads. And then our follow-up session, it was more about kind of sharing the creative book that Gwyn will talk about when he joins us. But we also did another exercise, and so this is the exercise now. This is live in the forest, so this is as it happened. So you're going to hear a few babies kind of chipping in with a bit of chatter, hopefully, if the sound keeps working.
What we're going to do, we're going to spread out in this area here, so hopefully you can find a space either together or separately. And what I thought we'd do as our final bit of forest bathing is kind of really get in touch with how we feel being here. So what we'll start by doing is I'll just kind of lead you in a short breathing exercise. So one of the benefits of being in the forest is that it can really kind of reduce our stress hormones, our cortisol levels, to really calm us down. And the other fab way of doing that is through our breathing. So we'll probably get double the benefit if we breathe really slowly and mindfully. So I'll start with that, and then once I've finished, I'll just wander off, and what I'd just like you to do is just really notice what it feels like to be here. Just be in this moment. You can carry on practicing the breathing or looking around, but every so often just touch in with just how it feels like being here. So if you do that kind of quietly on your own, or be near each other as a couple or with each other, and probably do that for about 5 minutes. So breathe in for 2 and out for 3, or a count that works for you. So if you start by just taking a nice slow breath in, breathe in the smells of the forest as you do that, and breathe out nice and slowly. And take another breath in. And out nice and slowly. And breathe in. And out. And thank you for the babies who are chipping in with their own noises. It's absolutely lovely. Okay, if you want to spread out, just find a nice quiet space. If you're finding you need to entertain the babies as you do that, you don't have to do it quietly. If you want to talk to them, just talk to them about what it feels like to be here, then you can do that.
So yeah, you kind of get a sense there of the babies taking part, and actually one of the lovely things I think was that the babies felt they were so calm and so chilled in the forest, and I don't think we had any crying babies in all 3 of the sessions that we ran. So that was very interesting, whether that's about being out in nature or that was in terms of the kind of the emotional state that the parents got into when they were out doing the forest bathing. So it looks like Gwyn's still held up with his meeting. He was meant to finish about a minute ago. So I will, he's prepared, he's given me his notes. So, oh no, he's coming now. Here he is. So I'll hand over to Gwyn and he can talk, he can just tell you a bit more about the creative outputs.
Hi, good afternoon. So in terms of the creative outputs, I kind of just talk briefly about kind of maybe some of the creative inputs. So a lot of the activities were accompanied by readings, and they were kind of tied in with the activity itself. So for example, when we had a listening exercise, we read a poem about the sound of beech trees, for instance. So the creative writing was very much integrated with the forest bathing experience. So for instance, we had a noting exercise where the couples worked in partners, kind of gathering words, kind of noting what they saw, kind of heard, smelt. And then we kind of used the words they gathered then to write haikus after the forest bathing. So we went back to a cafe and they kind of used that kind of material they'd gathered to write haikus. It was kind of something they seemed to really enjoy. And then also kind of during a session when we kind of took the couples up to kind of a really nice viewpoint to kind of experience a sense of awe.
Yeah, so I mean, actually, this was our first session, and it was tipping it down with rain, and I had we had this plan to take them to this view, and for some reason the clouds just cleared enough in that moment, because I guess again, one of the things that Florence Williams talks about in her book, The Nature Fix, is about the power of awe. So there's something about when we have an awe-inspiring experience, now it could be like giving birth. Or it could be a viewpoint, or even sort of like, I don't know, being in a cathedral, being in church, if you're religious, a sort of a religious experience. So when we instill that power of the awe, it takes us out of our heads and brings us to want to connect to someone else, to make sense of that experience. So it's really good for our well-being, but also with our connection with other people. So what we did, we got to this viewpoint, the rain had stopped, we spent a few minutes just looking out on the view, and then after that we asked them to talk in their pairs as we walk back to the car park about a sort of a favourite nature memory, and then sort of Gwyn, you then use that to...
Yeah, so then we kind of in the kind of following the forest bathing, we kind of provided some handouts kind of just to give them a feel for kind of the type of kind of writing about nature there is out there, and we kind of encouraged them to write down a nature memory or use a nature memory to develop a story. And the idea of this was something that they could then read to their baby as they grew. So this was an activity that they then had to do in their own time, and to be honest, we weren't completely sure how that would go down and whether people would necessarily put in the work. I did offer kind of online kind of creative writing workshops, but it wasn't something that was of interest to the group. But in the end, we had a really good number of submissions. We had some really nice, we had a few poems, we had some kind of people writing memories. So that kind of a really nice kind of collection of writing that I think the couples will probably read each other's work to their children as well. And then the final writing activity we had was after the second session, couples either together or individually wrote a letter to their babies, kind of sharing their hopes for the future and about their ongoing relationship with nature. So this was all it's all been collected into a book. There's the camera.
Yeah, we'll show you a picture of the book in a minute.
So in the book we've got the kind of collected haikus from the sessions, we've got the collected nature writing, and then we've got the letters as well. So each couple was given a book, but they were kind of very enthusiastic about the book, and they seemed to really like it. The idea was that it would be a reminder of their time in nature. They would see it on a shelf at home, or they would read and it would kind of bring them back. But they also were kind of quite keen to have, some of them were to have extra copies so that they had something as a keepsake for their baby for them to have in their bedroom.
Yeah, so we've just got an extract here from one of our mums, their story. So in our sort of follow-up event, we sort of saw it as a celebration event to share the stories that people had written. And so as we walked in the forest, we just kind of paused to share each other's stories. And so this is one of our mums' stories that Gwyn's reading here.
As I wandered towards the ocean, I noticed thousands of shells all washed up along the shore. I bent down to pick one up. It was iridescent and looked so magical. I marvelled at the beauty of what nature had created. I continued walking slowly, collecting shells as I went. As I came to the rocky cliffs at the far end of the bay, I stopped and breathed the sea air deep into my lungs. I held it in for a few moments and slowly exhaled with a sigh. The corners of my mouth turned up into a smile as I felt the warmth of the sun, while simultaneously the sea sprayed a cool mist on my skin. I am at peace and in awe of the wonderfulness of nature.
So this is the Glade tea rooms where we ran our writing bits afterwards. So it is actually in the forest, and there's our group at their feet anyway. And this is just a quick little interview now for.
Personally, life is so busy, it's difficult to.
Sorry, I should just say this is some feedback from one of our mums, and Dad and baby Dylan chips in as well.
Give yourself the time to relax properly and take notice of things. So to have this opportunity has really sort of settled my overthinking. That's sort of part of my problem, really, the overthinking bit of it. So it's just nice to be able to get out into nature and just stop for a minute. So that's been the main big thing for me, just allowing myself that time and space.
So what has it been like, kind of combining that with the writing side of things?
It's great. It's all sort of creative, isn't it? So it does go into one. And it is getting in touch with your creative side. But having a new baby, a young baby, you don't allow yourself time for anymore. I used to like writing quite a bit when I was younger, and that's sort of fallen by the wayside. And to write about nature and sort of whilst you're in it, it really does sort of open up your mind.
Giving yourself the time to do it, and it's very difficult to do, and like, having to work with this little chap, and then when it gets to the weekend, whether we're exhausted or you've got lots of things to do in the house, or there's just you just have to remind yourself that this is actually just on our doorstep, and we can go out for a few hours and allow ourselves that time to do it. And it's lovely, it's peaceful.
And the writing as well. It's about leaving something for Dylan to have a look back on. And I think that's just lovely. The stories and the what do you call it? The 575.
Yeah, the haikus.
I always forget that. Yeah. The haikus. It's so lovely. I mean, I used to write poetry when I was younger, and hopefully it will inspire Dylan to do the same.
And that's the book. So everyone's had a copy now. I'm just going to come out of the screen sharing. We do have some outcome measures, but I'm aware of time, and we probably need to allow a bit of time for questions. But I don't know, Gwyneth, do you want to just kind of summarise really quickly some of the outcome measures we've had, and then hopefully we've got time to take a couple of questions.
Yes, so kind of really quickly. So we used the Warwick Edinburgh mental wellbeing scales, and we found all the respondents before the activity, they were kind of low wellbeing. They all moved up to moderate wellbeing. We also, kind of ahead of the first session, asked participants to use 3 words to describe themselves as parents, and then we also did the same after the second session. We've got the results kind of in a bit of a word cloud. So that quite nicely shows the kind of change in response in the kind of the most common word being anxious to start with, and then becoming loving, then following. We also did the a nature connection index, and so I just highlight a couple of questions from that. So this one here is about being in nature makes me happy. Can kind of see a shift from kind of initially people kind of maybe either kind of, well, didn't really agree or disagree, or were kind of a low level of agree, and then kind of following is kind of a very strong agreement. And then next one, we also asked whether people felt a part of nature. And this one, kind of the results kind of even more dramatic. Kind of you see kind of people didn't feel a part of nature, or were kind of neither agreed or disagreed that they were. But then following the activity, kind of see them kind of really developing that kind of feel for being a part of nature.
We have got a whole heap of qualitative feedback as well, but I think we've run out of time. But I mean, just to say, I think on a personal note, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Practically, it was quite hard, I think, for a husband and wife pair with children to negotiate childcare for 3 Saturdays. And I think our children, we dragged them up to Wentworth Forest so many times in the preparation phase that I think they probably got a bit fed up of their weekends being slightly taken over by this project. But it's been absolutely wonderful seeing the way the forest for me has changed over the seasons. Since then, I've been up with a small group of mums and a colleague from primary care who's interested, and it's been a real, for me as a clinician and a very busy job, it's sort of been a real boost for me, I think, running it as well. And I think something that I've reflected on is actually how helpful the creative element has been, and I think it's really helped people to kind of keep that experience going. So when we had our follow-up, people were still as enthusiastic about nature as they were when we did the initial project, and everyone had been out loads in nature since then, and I think they'd felt that experience had really reconnected them with something that they'd loved before. So yeah, it's been a great experience. So that's really been the end of our project. So I guess we've been thinking about what next. So watch this space. But we're thinking about, someone mentioned staff wellbeing earlier. That's something we've been thinking about, that this could really work as a staff wellbeing intervention. So yeah, I think we've got 2 minutes left. I don't know if there's any immediate questions, and I know my colleagues are presenting next, so I don't want to take up any of their time.
Thank you both. That's absolutely fab, and I wait and watch with, you know, with bated breath now to see what else you do or your next steps. So any questions for Sarah or Gwyn at all? There's been some comments in the chat, isn't there?
Just that people have really enjoyed it, and just the impact, and that actually it's free stuff, isn't it? It's not, you know,
yeah, and we used a budget to give them tea and cake as well. I think they felt very nurtured, which is I know, which I think is that there's so little of that, isn't there? And it did feel like a very nurturing experience for everybody involved.
We've got a question there from Millie. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I was just interested. You were saying that a lot of the parents were talking about they'd lost that connection and they refound it again. So I suppose I'm interested in perhaps whether next time, if there is a next time, whether working with parents that have never had that connection, or where there's like even more barriers to them accessing, whether, you know, they've never really established that connection, and just, I suppose, just interested in your thoughts on that, really. Because
gosh, yeah.
I think you're talking about, yeah, there are people that might just find that experience quite scary as a thought and might not even want to contemplate doing it, but actually might find those benefits. So yeah, just interested in your thoughts.
No, it's a really valid point, and we're very mindful that they were very much a self-selecting group, you know, people that already had an interest in nature and a willingness to do something out of comfort zone, like the creative writing, because I mean, even with that group, we were surprised about how well they engaged with it, because I think it is quite a challenging thing for any of us to start writing something. But yeah, we're mindful they all had to have cars to get there. You know, Wentwood Forest isn't very easily accessible. So, you know, petrol costs, you know, so I think that is the real challenge. How do you engage people who don't have the resources, or maybe don't have that experience to even know that it might benefit from it? So
yeah, so this project was funded by Literature Wales, and as a part of 4 different projects they were funding. So we'll have a chance to share what we've done with the other projects, but some of those other projects were looking at accessibility and the ability of people with disabilities to enjoy nature. Some of those projects were working with communities in cities that don't necessarily always go out to enjoy the countryside. So I think there'll be a chance for us to maybe think about what their experience is, and maybe use that to inform a future approach.
yeah, thanks, Millie, that's a good question.
Lovely. Okay, then shall we move on to our last speakers? And we've got Deborah, Bronwyn and Barbara, and they're going to share with us a little bit about the collaborative project they're piloting, which is about providing creative sessions for new parents and their babies. So I'll hand over to you.
Hello, hi, can you hear me? Can I suggest that people switch off their cameras except for Bronwyn and Barbara, so we 3 can be visible? Is that all right? Thank you, and I'm going to do a screen share now of this. Can you now see a PowerPoint screen?
Yes. Well, a blank screen, Deborah.
A blank screen, yeah. Okay, thank you. So, okay, so hello, I'm Deborah, and I'm here with Bronwyn and Barbara, and together we're going to talk about and show you some work we've done this year. Oops. Piloting a collaborative project providing creative sessions for new parents and their babies in Aneurin Bevan University Health Board in partnership with the perinatal and parent-infant mental health teams. Aneurin Bevan University Health Board has had a long-standing commitment to arts in health and delivers a wide programme across the health board through its arts and health team who are in planning. The health board has recently approved and adopted their first arts in health strategy, which includes these objectives. I won't read them all out. But all of these apply to this project. The Arts Council of Wales has been supporting strategic development of arts in health with support of the Welsh NHS Confederation for a number of years, and now in partnership with the Bearings Foundation is funding a range of arts in health projects across Wales, I think in each of the health boards, including this project. Pilot work in our first year has provided the evidence base for successfully gaining a second year of this funding. The Health Board's perinatal mental health and PIMS teams work with people who have experienced difficult circumstances such as difficult pregnancy, a traumatic birth, relational difficulties between parents, difficulty bonding with a new baby, or even previous losses. And for many, of course, these factors have been compounded by the pandemic and now the cost of living crisis. So the partners together envisaged a value for these parents in trying creative activities for their enjoyment, self-discovery and self-reflection, meeting others who may also have similar experiences and struggles, and a chance to simply be in the moment. Our aims and intentions have been to work in partnership and collaboratively across disciplines, to work with professional artists across a range of practices who have extensive experience in working with vulnerable people, to be emergent and responsive, shaping the creative sessions in dialogue with both the partners and the participants, to embed reflective practice throughout, and for the project to support both the parents and their relationships with the babies. Staff of perinatal and PIMS teams took part in taster sessions with the artists, offering an experience of the sessions approach before they had conversations with potential participants to invite them to come along. And staff of both teams described these taster sessions as valuable also for the staff to be with each other and reconnect after lockdowns. So this is the overall structure, which has been laid out here by Laura Mariner, the assistant psychologist, and you can see we ran 3 pilot groups. The first 2 were run for mums by myself, led by me first, and then the second by Bronwyn. The second block was longer than the first in response to feedback, and the third group was run by Alex Lupo with dads. They were all run in different parts of the health board area in different locations. So the sessions are 2 hours long. They often start with a short mindfulness exercise, which brings people to a calm, relaxed state. Then 1 or 2 artists lead activities. No one has to take part in these. Knowing there's a choice can make it easier. Sometimes we decide to be more directive whilst gauging the room's mood and adapting to it. Around the activities, time spent together on the floor mat with toys is when parents will chat. There's a friendly and easy atmosphere of mutual support and respect. Lots of questioning and advice given around between the mums. And there's always plenty of humour and playfulness. Babies are a part of the session in different ways. Activities are all designed to accommodate the parents and the baby's preferences to be together or apart within close reach. The core team of artists, Bronwyn, me, Deborah and Alex, is occasionally extended to bring in relevant practitioners, and often these artists have direct, relevant lived experience of some of the issues faced by the parents involved. 1 or 2 artists facilitate each session depending on numbers, current themes and the participants' interests. Close dialogue across the disciplines has been key and enabled the depth of work, informed focus on need and a considered evaluation, amongst other things. This has been made possible by a strong pre-existing relationship between the PIMS and perinatal teams, their enthusiasm and commitment to the project and an open-minded response to working with the arts. Artists running sessions together with a peer mentor or support worker and an assistant psychologist is critical because they bring understanding and awareness of the parents' circumstances. They integrate these sessions into the wider support that's being provided to the parents. And also between us, there's always people available to look after babies while the creative activities are happening. Our initial theme was attend to our bodies, noticing, honouring and caring for our bodies, both individually and in relationship. Whilst there were some conversations about difficulties and struggles, the creative activities offered different ways to approach, share and live with what was going on for the parents. And now I'm going to hand over to Bronwyn, who's going to share a film with you and talk.
Thanks, Deborah. Just before I start the film, I just want to give an introduction to what it is before you watch it. So it came out of a conversation of having some sort of documentation of what we'd done in the groups, but also within a mindfulness of confidentiality and doing something that was within the comfort of the parents in participating, and the playfulness that happened quite a lot. And just briefly to explain some of my practice as a movement and dance artist, I have got a background in youth mental health and working in the perinatal period, but from a dance point of view, what I tried to do was bring in some of the concepts around developmental movement, which is actually like a thread of dance practice where we look at how babies and toddlers learn how to move and we incorporate that into our dance practice. And I took that idea back into a room with the parents and their babies, where we did various exercises where we'd actually mirror and copy what the babies were doing and start to really look at the world from the baby's points of views. So that was one aspect that was really successful and worked really well in terms of developing that empathy and kind of that relationship between all the different participants. And one of the things we noticed was the babies actually became more and more active participants in the creative activities as we went along. So they were also playing a part in dictating what we were doing and how we were doing it. The other thing that I really wanted to look at was finding different ways for people to just get into their bodies and to start just being in their physical bodies and reconnecting with how they felt inside, because so often when we have children, we become quite disconnected from thinking about ourselves because we're so much focusing on this other human being that's outside of us. So I did a lot of mindfulness stuff and also just physical work to really almost help people to switch that thinking brain off, so then they could just start moving. And you could see that happening over the weeks in terms of how much freer the participants were with how they were moving and how they were using the space, and also how confident they were telling me what they were and weren't comfortable doing. And the other way that this was interesting was it started to bring their identity into the room. So by the music they chose, telling me what songs they wanted to dance to, we created some dance moves together and a new kind of like a social dance that we did collectively. They had ownership over those moves in that space. And you could see that in the freedom with which they accessed all of that. And I think for me, the one thing that was really obvious about this group was that you could go to lots of baby groups and they talked about other baby activities, but in this space, they knew that everyone there had gone through something. And so there was almost like an allowance and a tolerance and an acceptance that actually in this space, everyone was equal. And it wasn't that one person was going to be doing better than another. And we could switch our judging brains off and start noticing actually what we were doing really well, what was working, what felt really good. So instead of having that kind of focus on everything that we're not achieving or comparing ourselves to other people, it was a space where we could let go of some of that and actually start celebrating what was good about us. Yes, and I think that's enough from me. Deborah, I'll hand back to you.
Okay. Thank you. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint slide and take us next to Alex, the musician, is now going to talk for a bit on a film. Can you see that?
Hi,
Can you hear that?
I'm a musician, community musician and music therapist. I work with many different groups of people and I'm really interested in how music can support well-being and affect positive change. I approach all of my work with a similar set of principles or pillars. I work from the premise that art, creativity and specifically in this case music has personal, social and emotional outcomes as well as creative ones. I work with the idea that everyone is inherently musical and we're all born with an innate ability to use music as a means of forming meaningful bonds and attachments. This innate ability means that beyond the culturally learned phenomena of music, there is a biological imperative behind why music is important to us. Our relationship with it and deep connection to it builds from this fundamental point. So I work in a person-centered way, prioritising the building of relationships and making sure that I take the time to meet people where they're at, as opposed to expecting people to meet me and the creative process as if we were fixed entities. I think that patience, empathy and an unconditional positive regard for the people that I work with are also central to the work and its success. I'm interested in how music helps us to form and develop our identity and a sense of who we are in the world. Specifically in relation to this project, supporting new parents to explore their identity in this way feels really useful. So my experience of the sessions were that they were a safe space where the people that attended were able to explore together in a genuine and open way. I noticed that this felt more possible when the sessions were spread out over a longer period of time. The groups felt supportive, nourishing, and there was a sense of shared vulnerability among the participants and artists as we explored the creative process. has felt really positive and inspiring. I've been working creatively with groups of people for a number of years, and what makes this project stand out for me is the fluid collaboration between the groups of artists and the clinical professionals involved in the project. The explicit focus on the benefit of engaging in the creative process without the need to surround it with other outcomes or processes was really refreshing. The process of reflection and thoughtful questioning was also a really useful mechanism that made this work feel valuable, hopefully to the groups that we worked with, also as a means of development for the practitioners involved.
We asked all our participants to complete a questionnaire at the end of group. Of the participants who attended, 15 completed this questionnaire, and so we've compiled this information to produce some brief outcomes which we'd like to share with you. Our 15 participants were given a tick box exercise to say how they experienced the group with this list of words on the left. You can see here that 100% of them, that's 15 out of the 15, felt that the creative group was friendly. The next most popular adjectives were enjoyable and relaxing, both given by 86.7% of the participants. And this was followed by gentle and interesting, mentioned by 80%, followed by fun, comfortable, freeing and thought-provoking, and then mindful and joyful as well. The only word used that could be interpreted negatively or neutrally was busy, which was selected by 13.3% of the participants. Participants were also asked, have there been any benefits to attending the creative group? And 100%, that's 15 of the 15 participants, said yes. And then on the right hand side, when participants were asked what the benefits of the group were, we looked at the themes that came out, and the top themes of their answers included connecting with other parents, which was mentioned by 46.7% of the respondents, and being able to focus on oneself, which was mentioned by 33.3% of respondents. These were followed by other benefits such as new experiences or activities, being able to relax or being more centered, spending time with my infant, and supported my mental health. Participants were also asked, have there been any benefits to attending the creative?
Oops, sorry. I've lost track now. Have I already done that one?
I don't think so, Deborah.
Okay, thank you.
When asked, compared to the start of the creative group, how are you feeling at the moment? The most common themes were I'm feeling happier or more positive, which was mentioned by 60% of respondents. Being more comfortable with social interaction, mentioned by 40% of the respondents. And these were followed by themes such as calmer, more relaxed, less anxious, feeling better able to cope, and feeling more confident. Finally, when asked if they would recommend the creative group to a friend, 100% of the respondents across all three groups, that's 15 out of 15, said yes.
So that's that evaluation, and before I hand over now to Barbara to finish us finally, here's a place where you can get more information about the project or the Inara and Bevan University's art strategy. So now I'd like to hand over to Barbara. I'm going to unshare. There, Barbara, hello.
Hi Deborah, please excuse me, I'm sat on a windowsill in the Grange, it's not particularly comfortable. Okay, so my name's Barbara and I'm a peer mentor working within the specialist perinatal mental health team in Inara and Bevan. I have a direct lived experience of many aspects of perinatal mental health, as I also have ongoing mental health challenges. I have personal experience of postpartum psychosis, depression and anxiety, amongst others, and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder about 7 years ago. I feel that this experience enables me to offer our mums and families empathy and understanding, which is very difficult for someone who has not suffered to fully understand. 18 and 15 years ago, when my children were born, there was very little specialist help available, although I was lucky to access a mother and baby unit, which was then in Cardiff. So I know how it feels to be alone and feel misunderstood. I know how it feels to not fit in or feel like you don't have a place or a group where you belong. I developed strong working relationships with the mums and babies I work with, building up trust and understanding. And these relationships have proved invaluable in giving our mums confidence and support to attend this group. If I'm perfectly honest, and Deborah's encouraged me to say this, when I first heard about this group, I was quite sceptical that it would suit all the mums that I work with. But I'm delighted to say that in the ladies that we have helped, once they've managed to have the confidence to attend the first session, they realise the safe space, the talking space, the creative space this group can provide. The creative group has, amongst other things, given the mums a reason to leave the house. It gives mums a safe space to explore creative activities, to make friendships and chat with other mums in similar situations. The best takeaway from this group is the friendships that have been made, which now carry on independently of both the group and myself. It's given the mums the opportunity to experience new ideas and skills, and also for some to revisit hobbies and pastimes which they previously enjoyed. The feedback from the mums have been overwhelmingly positive. They look forward to the group and they actively participate. I'm so pleased to have been involved in this project, and I'm really looking forward to taking what we have learned to grow and develop this service further. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you. That's all.
And Barbara's brilliant. Everyone needs more peer mentors, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. That was, great. Any questions from anybody? Anything in the chat, Martha?
Just lots of thank yous.
Are there plans to run this sort of thing again then?
Yes, we've got funding to do a second year, so we'll be developing it. There's a few different ways in which we're developing it to see, in response to what we've learned from the first time, progressing forwards.
The main bit of feedback from the parents was they want it all the time, all day long, every day, forever.
Oh, right, okay.
But like a drop-in session.
Yeah, but I think like a more ongoing drop-in. Yeah.
Towards,
there's something here about the leads, the arts, no, I'm not going to get the words right, the wellbeing leads, arts and wellbeing, creative arts, wellbeing leads in each of the health boards, maybe trying to get them together to think about what's happening in each different health boards. I'm thinking from a perinatal perspective now, because that's our bag, isn't it? And seeing how we maybe can coordinate that better or provide that offer. There's very much about providing an equitable offer across Wales, irrespective of where you live. So that may look slightly differently, but then people have those opportunities. There's definitely something there, isn't there, around that? Okay. Go on, Deborah. Go on. You.
Sarah Goody, who's with the NR Bevan, is here in the
I don't know, Sarah, you're there somewhere in the background, whether that's something to think about, how, if you're, I don't know whether you meet regularly as a group across Wales, or whether we can arrange to catch up with you or attend a group or something, just to think about from a perinatal perspective what this could look like.
I think, hi everyone, hi Sharon. So in terms of the arts and health coordinators and project officers and managers meet on a regular basis, and I know that some people in the room today I recognise from the Arts and Health Dialogue, so it's definitely something that could be tabled, talking in arts and health terms and talking about wellbeing leads. I know that in ABUHB OD are promoting a wellbeing working party at the moment, looking at wellbeing across the health boards, so there's some really good you know, there's some really good connections between networks there. So after the meeting, I'm happy to put people in touch, or, you know, take calls off outside of here. But yeah, it is very connected. And I must say it's brilliant to see all the presentations today. If I don't get the chance to say that, thank you very much.
Thank you. So as well, also you know, it's about us taking this whole pathway approach. So working not just with our specialist teams, but with our midwifery and our health visiting colleagues and primary care. So yeah, lots of thinking for us to do. Any more questions for Deborah, Bronwyn or Barbara before I try and summarise this, you know, amazing day? Any more questions?
No questions in the chat, Sharon. Essa in CTM has said she'd love to coordinate something nationally as well. Okay. So that's from CTM. Yeah. So. Okay, lovely. All right. So I'm going to do a little bit of summarising, hopefully. So we started the day with our lovely Hannah, who reminded us that we all have it in us and we've got to give it a go. And that's about that spark of magic and encouraging us to be curious. Julia talked about safe spaces, trust, peer support and sharing reality. And then we had the powerful sharing of experiences from Sophie and Kirsty, which I think touched us all. So the words I wrote there and, you know, I shared earlier was about being touched, inspired and motivated. Tracy reminded us the importance of being aware of our own emotions and our bodies and to follow our bodies. And space to open up and begin to heal. And then Karen talked about that lifestyle approach, didn't she, and the work that they're going to be doing in North Wales. And words there that were shared were respect, openness, kindness, deep listening, patience. Anna talked about loads, there's tons of evidence. I've not read a thing around this, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to be going now and reading around this and starting to think about how we can replicate and or, you know, show this in our perinatal world and demonstrate. She also talked about collaboration, conversations and how connections are key. Sarah and Gwyn talked about mindfulness and that immersive experience of being in the forest and the huge physical and mental well-being benefits. And then Deborah, Bronwyn, Barbara, you talked about the importance of collaboration between health, creative colleagues and parents. And you know, when I was watching those films, it was lovely. I saw the smiling, the laughter, the togetherness with peers and the babies. You know what, that's really touching. It really made me smile. So yeah, thank you. We've come to the end of the day. I don't know whether there's any general questions or thinking or thoughts. There is another Mentimeter. So I'm not sure if Helen's there in the background. She's going to pop that link in again, but it'd be really great. I think the question is one word. Is it, Helen? Where are you? One word that you'd offer from the day.
One word best describes today's event for you. I'll just pop the Menti code again now.
Is there anything else, Helen, that I've forgotten? The recording will be in the chat again when we finished, is that right?
So the recording, I need to do some editing with it, so I need a couple of days to do that.
Sorry, you need to do some sewing and knitting.
And then the materials from today. So what we'll be doing, we will be sending you a link to our collaborative website and the Perinatal platform where you'll be able to access materials from today, the presentations, the recording, and also there'll be a summary of any links that have been shared. And I've just shared the Mentimeter again, which is a barcode, so you should be able to just scan that from your phones as well if you wanted to.
And Helen, just when you're doing the stitching, the women haven't quite decided who their audience is for the film that we made. So is it all right if we exclude that for now?
That's fine, no problem at all.
Thank you.
Okay, I can see Marilene's got her hand up there.
I have, and I'm really sorry if you've already touched upon this because we did go out for a fire alarm and something throughout the day, so it's been a little bit eventful. But I'm just wondering where education sit in going forward in terms of schools, and because I think we're doing, there's such creative collaborative work now going forward from all agencies here, but so I think for certainly think through lockdown and sort of having lots of teachers in the family, I think they've all benefited. The children have really benefited on creativity and mindfulness, and that's been so essential. But I just wonder where going forward could we be bringing in the, you know, our partners in education, because they'll, you know, we're doing such great work early on, but it's keeping going with that for the parents of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we talk about this, it's cyclical, isn't it? And wouldn't it be great? Are you talking about from a perinatal point of view there, Marilyn?
I think, yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
definitely.
We'll put it on the to-do list. We've got some big items that we just need to complete and finish off. But these, you know, these are things after Christmas. What I think we're going to be doing, we've just started having initial discussions, is to offer a series of workshops to think about where we're at and where we want to go, so that we can start to inform and influence the next mental health strategy. So this, you know, absolutely, Marilyn, keep that in mind, because this is what we could be including for the next 5-10 years, or however long it's going to be.
I'll lower my hand once I remember how to do it. Bear with me. That's it. So thank you all. It's been really good.
Okay. Martha, did you want to?
Yeah, no, it's just to say about the nest and the NIF work as well, isn't it, Sharon? How
Yes,
this links
absolutely.
really
Millie's
strongly
there
with
or was.
I think Millie's gone now, otherwise I'm
Right.
sure she would have said something. But, you know, Marilyn, all this work is looking at this kind of systems approach across all ages. So it's very much, being pulled together across those approaches. So hopefully we will have quite a loud voice in those things, really, yeah.
How did you describe it? The nest and the...
Yes, the nest NIF approach.
Okay.
This is the work that Together for Children and Young People have been doing over the last, I don't know, few years now. It's come to an end, but it's a tool to encourage the RPBs, the regional partnership boards, to take a whole system approach. So Martha and I have had some initial meetings with Millie to think about how that's reflected in the work that we do within perinatal mental health. The words that are being used may be different, but, you know, what I'd like to think is this, what we've been doing over the last 3 years absolutely reflects this. So, you know, the importance of community and trusted adults, and Helen was involved in all of that work, so she may be able to help me with some of the words. But it's mirroring that and fitting it into the work of NISNES, because each of the RPBs there's an expectation now that they need to be embedding that tool within health boards, and that's where we need to be having those bigger conversations and linking into that work that's happening within your starting wells, your early years, whatever they're called, across the health boards, you know, with your public service boards and your regional partnership boards. So we can really get this work around perinatal and parent-infant relationships, you know, in the plans.
Thank you.
Yeah. Ellen, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to ask, can I just share the Mentimeter slide, if that's okay? Just give me a minute to make sure that my technology is working. Can you see that?
Yep. Lovely. So inspired, fantastic. You know, in this difficult world where you're being pulled in all different directions, and we absolutely understand the pressures that are happening and within services, and the difficulties that you're facing. The fact that you're here today to, you know, to listen and to share, you know, we're truly grateful for. But if you can go away and just think about what you could do to think more about this work, or to make those connections, or to make it happen in your areas, you know, be incredibly grateful. So yeah, inspiration comes up a lot, doesn't it? Motivated, yes. Brilliant. Yeah, so if there's nothing else, thank you so much for coming along. We will start to be thinking about the next community of practice, which I think is going to be